Praise the Lord and good morning. I'd like to welcome everyone here to the New Life Experience Church here in the city of Savannah, Georgia. This is our adult Sunday school lesson being taught by Elder Kendrick, but our pastor here at church is our District Elder John Anderson, along with his wife, Sister Sally Anderson. And this is the seventh lesson of this series for the spring, I believe it is, for the spring months. And the title of the lesson is Worthy is the Lamb, and it's coming from the book of Revelation. The book of Revelation, I don't want to say it's a hard book to understand. I think it's a hard book to teach because you have to, all of the other seven lessons we have went over. They all go in size together, but they're coming from everywhere in the Bible, but Revelation kind of ties it all in. And this book was written by the Apostle John, the beloved apostle. He wrote, of course, Revelation, 1st, 2nd, and 3rd John, and he also wrote the book of St. John, and he was called, I believe, on the cross, Jesus told him, John, behold your mother. This is your mother. Gave his mother to him. And this John, he was the last apostle. He did not die a martyr's death. He died naturally, the only one that died naturally. But they did try to kill him. They missed him when they tried to cut his head off. That's a story within itself. They also tried to cut him in half. They missed him. But he was doomed to die on the Isle of Patmos. And when we're going to go back to a lot of that when we talk about some of this here, and it would make sense how John was writing it. It's not hard to understand, but remember these apostles, they were men. They were men. And we're going to be coming from the 5th chapter, verses 1 through 10, what we're going to look at. It always, the biggest controversy come from 6 to 10, and as being apostolic, you'll see what I'm talking about. That's where a big mystery and a lot of stuff start coming in at. But anyhow, John, he introduced himself, and when he's, if he in the sleep or he's in the body, we do not know, but God was giving him a revelation. And in this hymn, and coming to the 5th chapter, in the 4th chapter, he's at the throne of God. He talks about the church, the 7 churches of Asia Minor. He talks about the beast that Daniel and Ezekiel saw, the one with 4 heads. We don't have a lot of time to talk about all of that. And that's really not a mystery. What I think the church need to be talked. I can't say talked about to really try to understand that this is the part we're going to get into. Like I said, verses 1 through 10, verses 5. I think all of the church agrees, but coming from 6 to 10, that's when we as apostolics and a lot of stuff look, and I hate to use the word just because I am of the apostolic faith, but you'll see what I'm talking about if we get to that part of the lesson. But remember in chapter 5, John is seeing the throne of God. And unlike in Isaiah, when Isaiah say, in the year that King Uzziah died, I also saw the Lord high and lifted up, and he saw God sitting on the throne. But in the 4th chapter, John, he begins to talk about how God, I don't want to say how God's look. He talked about the jaspers and the stone and the color of God and who was sitting there. That's all in the 4th chapter. If we go into that, that's another whole lesson by itself. But in the 5th chapter, he's talking about the throne room of God. I was going to read all 10 together, but let's take it verse by verse this time. And if you have any questions, the ones sitting in the sanctuary, you can ask the question, and we'll try to go with it. And the ones that listening, if you come in on Tuesday night to our Bible class, where our pastor will be teaching this Tuesday, and you have a question, we'll be able to dive in and look at the question. If I'm here, I'll look at the question. But you are always invited here, but we'll be happy to try to we interact with you and answer the questions. Not saying we have all the answers. You might have a different point that we can look at. But in the 5th chapter, this is John. he is looking into the throne room of God. It coming from Revelation, the 5th chapter, verses 1 through 10. And this is John talking. And I saw the right hand of him that sits on the throne, and I saw in the right hand of him that sits on the throne a book with a book written within and on the backside, sealed with 7 seals. Now he's looking into the throne room of God, and he saw him sitting on the throne. And I'm just going to stick with that. And in his right hand, the hand of favor, the hand with all power in it, he saw a book. Now, this was not a book like the Bible, per se, a book what we got with a binder on it like this. It wasn't a book like this here. It wasn't like this here. It was a scroll. If you want to see, they always talking about the scroll. And it had 7 seals. But what was unique, this is not the only place. The only other place that this book was written, or this scroll was written, on the inside and the outside, you find in the book of Revelation, in the book of Ezekiel, when Ezekiel was talking about the Lamb's Book of Life. So we know this is the same book. It was written on the outside and the inside. People in the corporate world know when you get paper now, it's written on both sides instead of just one side. And this hymn was written like that. And it was written on both sides, on the inside and the outside. And it said it had 7 seals. I'm not going to say it was just rolled it all up like that and had 7 seals. As you see going, it's so many pages in it, and it was sealed. Then another one, and it was sealed. And it was done 7 times. And it was all rolled up. But it had 7 seals in it. And the 7 seals, in teaching the book of Revelation, it have it's very important. The number 7 in the book of Revelation, the number 7 in the Bible, if you all study numbers and stuff of the Bible, it's very important, the number of completion. But it had 7 seals. He said it had 7 seals. And this John, he's still talking in verse 2, and he said, and I saw a strong angel proclaiming with a loud voice, who is worthy to open the book and to loose the seals? Not just to open the book, who is worthy to open the book and loose the seals? And that's something within itself, because to open the book, you got to break the seals. But this was a strong angel to show that it probably was an angel what he hasn't seen or hadn't heard of before, because we know about the seraphims and the cherubims. We know about those angels. We have read that, and we know about the other just regular angels. But this here was a different angel. He didn't know how to call this angel, did not know his name, and called him a strong angel. The Bible called it a strong angel. In other words, we know it's different hierarchies of angels, just giving us that right there. And this was one of the strongest one. And he cried out in a loud voice. It had to be strong because he had to have the voice to say, who is worthy to open this book and to loose the seal? And growing up, and I always tell everyone, and if this have to be edited out, my father was a Baptist deacon, and I remember the preacher always getting up there saying that he looked over here and he couldn't find no one. He looked over here and he couldn't find no one. And he looked here and he said, I will make me a body, and all of this here. This probably is where they got this here from. Because the angels, let's look at verse 3. It's saying, and no man in heaven, nor in earth, neither under the earth, were able to open the book, neither look upon it. Well, nobody. I remember going, they say he looked at Moses, he couldn't do it. He looked at him, he couldn't do it, and something, like that. Now this John, now think about you being a man, you got the gift of prophecy, and God is showing you this here. And he said, it's nobody in heaven. The loud angel, the strong angel, couldn't open it. Michael, Gabriel, none of them could not open it. No man on earth, if you want to say Moses, if you want to say Elisha, if you want to say Habakkuk or whoever, none of the prophets, Samuel, they couldn't open it. Even to the ones that had died before, Methuselah, Noah, none of them, was nobody worthy to open the book. And what did it said to not just to open it, when no one able to look upon it. When no one able to look upon it. And then he said that, and then what John say, and I wept much. In other words, he cried. Just think about it. You was an apostle and you wasn't able to open it. Just think about today, some of these apostles, prophets, and preachers and bishops, they're not able to open it. When the apostle who walked with John, who walked with Jesus, he wasn't able to open it. And it was so good, so bad that John, he just cried. And he cried much. He wasn't just, he dropped a tear because he wasn't worthy to open it. Now just think about John. They tried to kill John 3 times, but he lived. And all of that, he's crying because he would probably was thinking, maybe I did not die, so I am worthy to open it. It was in his mind. But it said, was no one opened it. The loud angel said, when no one worthy. So he cried much, because no man was found worthy to open and to read the book, neither to look upon it. In verse 5, and one of the elders said unto me, okay, which one of the elders he was talking about? In the throne room of God, I didn't lay the background good enough. In the throne room of God, God is in the midst, of course. Then around it in 4 corners, you got the 24 elders representing the tribes, I believe the tribes of Israel. And then but right there, in the midst of all of that, the angels are there. Just worshiping God, saying, holy, holy, holy. All of this is going on in the throne room of God. If we had studied before, all of that is in second, after the churches in Asia Minor, comes into the 3rd chapter talking about that. Okay, but we still at verse 5. And one of the elders said unto me, weep not. Behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has prevailed to open the book and loose the 7 seals thereof. In other words, he's saying we have found someone now. Okay, now going into the 4th verse. Now you got to stay with me. Especially we as apostolics, I need you to stay with me. It said, behold, the Lion of the tribe of Judah. In other words, it had to come from that. Both David, both Mary and Joseph, both had the lineage. So the Lion and the root and the offspring of David is the offspring. That's who Mary was. She was from the line of Judah, but she was the off. So when you look at the lineage and how it's on the offside of it and stuff like that, how the root of David, that he has prevailed. In other words, he's worthy to open the book. He's worthy to loose the 7 seals. In other words, the 7 seals. Now, when these 7 seals are loose, if you're studying more from the book of Revelation, these 7 seals are going to loose 7 plagues upon this earth. That's it. When you talk about the seals and things, that's what it is. But nobody able to do that. But a plague sometimes can be a good thing if we are studying the book of Revelation. I know I'm getting ahead of myself and doing. That's why I was telling someone this is a hard lesson to teach because in the end we win. We know in the end that we win, but it's so hard to teach because you're trying to teach something what's bad going to happen, and then we're going to go through it, and we're going to be all right. So it's a hard book for me. To me, it's a hard book to teach. And he said, he said, and one of the elders, John was crying, and one of the elders from the 24 elders, 4 and 24 elders, he said, weep not, behold, the Lion and of the tribe of Judah, the root of David, has prevailed. And in other words, what Jesus did, He prevailed that it's done. When he said it was finished, it was done. He had prevailed to open the book. When he died, because the angel could not find nobody, not in heaven, showing that Jesus was up there on earth when he came down, and when he was in the ground, he was he was down there conquering and couldn't find nobody. He had to loose them, if you don't mind me saying it. He had to loose them so they can prevail. And I know a lot of people, and you can come in and we can talk about this here. They say when Jesus was died on the cross, they said that the dead got up and walked the streets. I thought Jesus was the first of the resurrection. I believe they came out when Jesus came out. I believe they kind of wrote it, and if you read it, you can see it too. It just was something lost in the interpretation, because he had to find. It would have been someone worthy to open the book if they would have came out while he was hanging on the cross. And Jesus is the first fruit of the resurrection. So when Jesus came out, right behind him, they came out with him. Like that, that's, a lot of, and we have preached it, and I think I have shouted off of it. When they said when Jesus was dying on the cross that the dead got up. Then, I believe they got up, and this might be controversial, but I know Jesus, the Bible say that Jesus is the first fruit of the resurrection. So Jesus had to get up. He hasn't risen. He was still alive if you were saying he was hanging on the cross and they got up. So I believe they got up with him. They got up with him when he got up. When they went to the throne on Easter Sunday, I believe he got up. They all got up. He got up, and then he woke them up. That loud angel might have been talking then, but he got up then. But anyhow, and it said, who has prevailed to open the book, and that the Lion of the tribe of Judah and the root of David has prevailed to open the book and loose the seven seals thereof. And this John, he's still talking. Stay with me now. I need y'all to stay with me. And I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne and of the four beasts, we're not going to talk about the beasts, and in the midst of the elders stood the Lamb. Back up there, who did he see on the throne? Now he's seeing the Lamb. Is it two in the midst? Can I give you a theory? That's when the king himself became the Lamb. And John saw the transmission. When he got there, God was there. Jesus and God is the same person. And he looked up on it. The king had the book in his hand. 4 verses down, he looked, and there stood the Lamb. He stood there, and we keep going. That's why a lot of people get that it was two of them up there. But Jesus said he would not share his throne with no one. God would not share his throne with no one. They're showing where they are the same. So in the midst of all of that, and there was no personalities here. Don't get with me with that. Stay with me, you apostolic people. Now, okay, he's in the midst of the throne. Now, in the midst of the throne, the Lamb is there. Four verses up there was what God and the king, if you want to say, and now the Lamb is there. And he said, and behold, verse 6, I'm still in verse 6, and I beheld, and lo, in the midst of the throne of the four beasts, and in the midst of the elders stood the Lamb, as it has been slain, having the seven horns, the 7 eyes. 7 eyes is all knowledge. 7 thorns is all power. If we had time, we can go look at all of the power what Jesus had in his eyes, which are in the 7 spirits of God. You know that God sent forth into what God has sent forth in the earth. Standing there, first we saw with the seal in his hand, and then we see in the midst the Lamb. The Lamb, we know the Lamb, behold the Lamb of God, or behold God who was slain for the earth. It talks about the slain. As stood the Lamb as it had been slain, having the 7 horns, the 7 eyes, which is the 7 spirits of God sent forth in all the earth. And he came and he looked and he took the book out of the right hand of him that sat upon the throne. Somebody get to say, there we go. We got three of them right there. You see how it's all interchangeable? He went from the king to the lamb, and then he said he took the book from his hand. In other words, right there, Jesus, he took it. The one God doing it all right there. That just shows you how all-powerful God is. And I, for lack of a better word, don't want to say change, but you don't see where no one exited off and brought another one up there. It all right there, from king to the lamb, and then he came and he took it out of his hand. That Jesus said, I got all power in my hand, all of it. He didn't think it was a robbery to be equal with God because he is God. It's all right there. And this way, this where all of the stuff comes in, and a lot of people try to say it's three of them. But there's no one, when he looked, it was only one there. And you're only seeing one there at a time. You're not seeing you're not seeing the Father in the middle, the Son over here, and the Holy Ghost over there. You're not seeing there. You're only seeing one, and he can change. Just how many times people who is a father we have changed from being a father to being the son, if your dad is alive, and being an uncle. All in one time. You working on a job. You stop being a secretary. You stop being, start being a mother, from a secretary to a mother, then to a Sunday school teacher. That's all one person. That shows, that our God can be one thing. Our God can be who he wants to be. When he say, I am, he say, in other words, you put the other words in it. I know who I am. I am the Lamb. I am God. He started there. It's not three. All of it is right there, and it's being changed in the throne room, with the angels are still there worshiping him. They didn't stop and say, oh, I can't worship the Lamb. Oh, I can't worship the one who got this here. They never stopped, because he never ceased to be God. And when he became the Lamb, he won't cease to be the Lamb. And he is the one that is worthy to open the seal. And he never stopped that. It's never three. It's only one. And he changes right there. You never see where one come in. You say you want Bible. You never see where one come in and one exit out. They all right there, and it's all within that one person. And he all sits there. And he came, verse 7, because I could stay on verse 6 so more, and I'm trying to get through. And he came, and he took the book out of the right hand of him that sits upon the throne. He took the book. He was right there, and he took it out of his hand. Right there. Just moved over, or whatever you want to say, or when he changed into God. In verses 8, and when he had taken the book, the four beasts and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, having every one of them a harp, a vial full of odor, incense, which is the prayers of the saints. Okay, now that's they tried to go back with that. This say the prayers of the saints. I'd never seen where the children of Israel was called the saints. What was they called? They was called the children of Israel. That's what they was called. They was called his people. They was never called the saints. But before we go back there, where I'm at, I'm still in verse 8. Okay, he took the odor. Yes, they each had, David played a harp. Okay, having one, each one of them, they was playing the harp, the music. They was singing, they was praising him. Then they had the golden vials filled of odor. He went, the priest, as he taught a couple of Sundays ago, as he went through the temple sprinkling stuff, he had the incense going on before him. And when we looked at it naturally, we caused the killing of all of the animals, and it was standing there. It was bad smelling. So God had all of that, and that's just how our sin stinks before God. So he had them right there. He had them right there, and had the hope, the prayer when they prayed. When we taught this 4 weeks ago, when they preyed upon the animals and the lamb and and the bullocks and the goats and the turtle doves, and they had their scapegoat, they preyed upon them, and then they exit out. They had to have the good smelling, because our sin stinks so bad that he have it, and they call it the prayers of the saints. And this, let's keep going. Am I okay? And the order which was the prayers of the saints, and they sung a new song, saying, "Thou art worthy to take the book." In other words, these people said that whoever saw that, they said, "Thou art worthy to take the book, and open the seals there, open the plagues, open everything." That's going to begin everything. That's going to begin everything. But remember, okay, we'll have to go back at that. I'm getting ahead of myself now. This is another song, but it's still singing the same thing, though. Okay, it said, and he opened the seals thereof, and they which was slain. Let's start at the beginning. And they sung a new song, saying, "Thou art worthy to take the book and open the seals thereof, for thou hast slain and hast redeemed us unto God by thy blood out of every kindred, tongues, and people of the nation." In other words, a lot of people had been to be redeemed. Say redeemed. He had redeemed us to God, not redeemed us from God. When you redeem someone, when you buy something, you are taking something from them. But I got to remember to stay close up on this mic. When you redeem, you take it back. In other words, if you had this car and I gave you the money, I'm redeeming this car. But this hymn was redeemed unto God. In other words, he has saved us to give us back to God, because God said every soul belongs to his. Every soul belongs to him. So in other words, when Jesus died, he was redeeming us back unto God with his blood. And not only, did he redeem them, he was talking to the children of Israel, if you want to say. He redeemed all of us from every kindred. In other words, every kinship. We are all kin. By some way, we are all kin. We all going to go back to Adam, because it was only one original man. We're going to all go back. And no matter what language, all tongue, Arabic, Hebrew, Spanish, French. Spanish is an old language too, like the old one. It was there. And from people from every nation. In other words, what he did, he didn't do it in a corner. He did it for everyone. He did it for everyone. He did it for everyone to be seen, and for every nation. In verse 10, and he had made us unto our God kings and priests, and we shall reign on the earth. And we shall reign on the earth. That is another whole lesson in Revelation by itself. Who's going to reign and and all of this and kind of stuff. Who he was talking to, right there. But worthy, Jesus is worthy. He is worthy to open the seals. And it was one, with nothing changing. When it wasn't three in there. And, and being controversial now, I'm using the word, it wasn't no Trinity there. When he looked, he only saw one. It was only one there. Coming from the first verse, it was only one. And when the Lamb was there, it was still only one. And when he redeemed us, it was only one. And that's why he is worthy. Jesus is worthy. He is a lamb that is worthy. The lesson is ending. Do anyone have any questions or anything?